All right, everyone, we are live. And yeah, this is going to be a very interesting live stream today. We've got some very good guests, a very good selection of guests that I feel are very appropriate people to discuss what's going on. Let's just say it's all gone a bit quiet. Now, anyone who's been a member of the animal rights movement over the past few years will have noticed the huge cancellation attacks, the mob attacks, the infighting, all started by sort of the woke mob. So, you must have this opinion on gender or, BLM or whatever it was. And I would say that this cancel culture stuff kind of peaked in 2020 with like the BLM hysteria that happened in June that year. But then it slowly started to decline and it's now gone mysteriously, eerily quiet. We're going to discuss our theories as to why that is today. So joining me today, I've got David Rams, I've got Nick FTV, and I've got Patricia Nonis. I think they're very good people to discuss all this because they have all personally been victims of these mob attacks. And we're going to just let the guests introduce themselves now, and they can talk very briefly about their experience with cancel culture as well before we kind of get into some of these theories as to what the hell is going on and why there is this radio silence basically now. So David, we'll start with you. Just introduce yourself and what your experiences have been with this mob.
Well, first of all, I wouldn't call myself a victim. I would call myself a survivor. Just want to make that clear for everyone, just to make sure we're getting off to the start that we're supposed to. So my beginnings with all of this kind of cancel mob or this kind of attitude started way back in probably 2018 when I would call myself a feminist back then because I didn't understand fully what that meant. I just thought it meant you were for women's rights, which I still am now. So I used to think, yeah, that's what it means. That's okay. I am that, obviously. Mm-hmm. And then I was told by two hardcore feminists that I can never be a feminist because I am white, male, and because I am too confident and I speak with women in too much of a they called me like, I don't know, pushy or firm way, and it's clearly because I'm sexist. And that was told that regardless, I speak that way with everyone, regardless of who they are. This is how I am. But they said, no, because of that, then I can never be a feminist. And it kind of started a bit of a learning journey for me from there on. So I figured, okay, if that's what feminism is, I want nothing to do with it. if that's the shit that they believe, then I'm still absolutely for equality and women's rights, but I don't want to be associated with that if that's the politics of these people. And then from then on, so probably the next biggest campaigns against me was I was working with the Save movement in India. They sent myself and my partner Annie to India to go and try and meet activists and get them to start Save groups and work with the Save movement and have their own Save network and community. The reason that we went was because there was nobody over there currently that was, let's say, no one had been working with Save for long enough to be trusted with this kind of like money, this kind of funding, this kind of responsibility. So they were like, okay, you guys go over there, kick it all off, find some people we can trust, and then, we'll fund them to do it themselves, right? Mm-hmm. But apparently that meant that myself and Annie were colonizers. And there was the campaign against us that we are white colonizers, that we should leave India, that this is just more colonization, blah, blah, blah. So that was the next campaign. There's been a few like others in between, but the next main one against me was I got fired from the Save movement because I told people that they didn't have to feel guilt-tripped into doing human rights activism if they didn't want to. And this was during the June 2020. I said, if you don't feel guilt-tripped, if you want to do it, do it. But as long as you're not hurting people, you don't have to do it, right? And vice versa. If you're a human rights activist, but you're vegan, you don't have to do animal rights activism, just don't hurt animals. And that was enough, apparently, to have me, that was horrible. That was the worst thing I could have ever said. And also, they spread a rumor that I was racist and I refused to interview black people. This was something else that they spread via email. And where that came from was because they told me to select people based on their skin color for interviews, because I was a videographer for the Save movement. I said, no, I'll only select them based on, I'll select them based on what they're doing and how, where they're, where
How
they're
dare
based
you,
in.
David? You
Oh
want
yeah,
to select people based on the merit of what they have to bring to the table. Didn't you know that
right.
the only reason that, we should ever, give any kind of person a platform is just because of how they were born and
Absolutely.
their demographic?
Yeah, yeah. So
I,
I called Save out for that immediately and told them that they're tokenizing people, and they disagreed. And eventually, we came to a compromise that they would send me a list of people they wanted to be interviewed. And I said, fine, but I'm not selecting them because that's racist. If you want to select people based on race, that's your call. I'll do what I'm told. I work for you, but I'm not doing it. Like I'm not going to select them myself. You're going to do that. And then they agreed, sent me the list over. And then like a week later, they were like, right, for all these different reasons, we're firing you. And those were the two main things they were firing me for, because of the video that I made where I said that stuff, and because of me calling them out. And then they emailed people privately, people who emailed in who said, we have an issue with what you've done with David. They were like, well, he refused to interview black people, so you
all
shouldn't
right.
support him. Yeah. And there you go. That's
Wow.
my experience with the woke mob.
Yeah, well, and again, this makes you a very good guest to have on, David. So,
Wow,
Patricia.
I don't know this about Save. Sorry, Save is the organization that used to say, or will say, like, to support slaughterhouse workers. Is that
They still say to support slaughterhouse workers, absolutely. And I want to also mention that at the time where I was saying that, don't feel guilt tripped to support don't feel guilt tripped to do human rights activism. At that time, Save was literally donating animal rights funding to BLM organizations. They were taking money that they had been funded with and sending it to so
But
they
David,
are.
that money got spent brilliantly though at BLM,
Yeah,
didn't it?
I'm
So
sure it did.
like,
Yeah.
what's the issue with that? Anyway, yeah.
It's just mad. That tiny percentage of money that goes for farmed animal rights. No. That needs to go to BLM organizations. So Save was doing that. So it's no surprise that they ended up, parting ways with me when I was calling them out for the tokenization and stuff. But yeah.
Unbelievable.
All right. Patricia, did you want to introduce yourself and give us briefly your account of experiences with like the woke mob, the council mob within AR?
Yeah, although my experiences are nowhere near as extreme as what we just heard from David. So yeah, I'm
Good.
Pat Nonis. Patricia Nonis. I'm a lawyer and animal rights activist from Australia. I'm starting a PhD next year on animal rights theory. And I guess I haven't had any really big campaigns or whatever against me. It's more just generally I'll put out content critiquing identity politics or something I see as being misrepresented in the animal rights movement, and we'll just cop a flack of shit for it, basically. Like, it's just putting up with a lot of bullshit on my end. It's not really one big campaign, or it's just a continuum of regressive insults, which I don't really care about because someone has
I've seen you be called out before, like on some of these toxic pages. I've seen, Patricia Nonis said this and that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
like
just
on
like
Instagram
an
pages.
Asian right-wing white Asian supremacist. I don't know, just like the weirdest shit. And it's interesting because I have opinions that can be considered both left and right. So I don't see myself as any of these things. But if you have an opinion that is not left, all of a sudden you're in a certain category, which is quite amazing, really.
Yeah, awesome. Nick, please introduce yourself and tell us about your experience briefly with the council mob.
G'day. Thank you for saving me until last. I thought you would put the women forward and women first. So it's around the same year, is it fine year, 2018. Around that time, I was a bit trolly on the internet, but I was mainly doing, because my predominant form of activism is just social media. I just smash, comments and, challenge people to debates and all this sort of stuff, and sort of developed a bit of a knack for reading people's comments, understanding them, and then responding in a sort of a clear, concise way. And back then, it's part of the learning curve to where I'm at now, I suppose. I wouldn't call myself a professional by any means, but it all started when back in 2018, I just was making just random trolly comments. One of them was, it's so weird bringing it back up and being able to just talk about it. One of them was, being fat is preventable.
Right.
Along the lines of, in the sense that, the things that you put into your body, matters, and if you want to move and be a bit more energetic and exercising, then you'll be more likely to be more of a healthy person. Along those lines, cancelled for that. I said this one: if you got a dick, you're a male. That was pretty heavy. That was a screenshot that.
These are pretty funny, to be honest.
Yeah. Everyone's probably seen it actually. Yeah, that one went around, did the rounds. I was AV organizer at the time here in Adelaide in South Australia, and luckily there was a whole bunch of people that sort of saw straight through it. And at the time I was like, oh shit, I'd never really touched on any of these topics, so I don't know too much about it. So I just sort of threw my comment out there. I was, oh yeah, and then I was like, got the bombardment of waves of, oh, you're a transphobe, all this sort of shit. That was the first time I ever heard that word. And then I also made a comment about there's a rapper here in South Australia. Oh, sorry, in Australia. He's an Indigenous rapper. He goes by the name Briggs, and I made a comment on one of his Instagram posts where he put a picture of a bacon, hamburger, and I made a comment saying, "Hey, look, I don't think you should be speaking out for the oppressed if you're actively oppressing others in a more extreme way." And yeah, he called me a white supremacist, blocked me, and then that did the rounds as well. So yeah, and throughout the years, I've been sort of biting my tongue a little bit by not saying too much because I'm sort of in the levels of like organising all the stuff here in South Australia and
the cat's coming out the bag today, Nick.
That's
the tongue is not being bitten today.
And so I sort of bite my tongue throughout the years, but now I'm sort of slowly bringing it back out because we're going to go through it. I think I've got a lot to say.
And that's a great segue because it feels like now we do not need to bite our tongues. Over the past few years, there's been a very toxic culture within the AR movement where people have been scared to say what they think. That seems to now have come to an end. And obviously that's a good thing. I'm glad that it's come to an end, but it's also kind of a little spooky and eerie. It's like, what the hell is going on here? Right, so we're going to get into these in a bit, but first, I just want to tell everyone about a little two-part experiment I did in the run-up to this stream, just to test my theory as to, has everyone really gone quiet, or am I just kind of like making this up, maybe just saying this to myself or something? So one of the theories that I was going to bring up today is maybe it's just that my block list is massive and their block lists are massive, and and it's just like maybe I've just blocked so many people, whatever, that I'm just not getting called out for X opinion about whatever it is anymore because these people can't see me. So I thought, do you know what? I'm going to put this theory to the test. I unblocked, folks, about 800 people, like from the intersectional crowd, from the woke crowd, like across across Facebook and Instagram. Yes, 800 people. And I just started saying the same stuff that I've always said over the years that's been getting me cancelled and blah, blah, blah. And nothing. I haven't had a single fucking call out, right? So this was strange. So I thought, do you know what? I'm going to, sorry for lack of a better speciesist term, poke the angry bear with the stick like a little bit more. I'm just going to up it a little bit and just see kind of what happens in the build up to this stream. What I decided to do is to actually kind of confront one of the leaders, one of the like queens of the cancellation mobs over the years. Now, this would have been unthinkable back in 2020, right? No one would have dared to do this. Okay. I decided to go to the profile of this girl who I'd consider like one of the cancellation queens and see who I just unblocked, by the way. She was one of the 800 or so people. I thought I'd go right to her profile and actually kind of like call her out kind of thing over what she did, right? So I went to her profile and I scrolled all the way down to her post in 2020 where she was like rallying people up to like dogpile organizations inside the animal rights movement and even outside it. I'm talking like vegan restaurants and everything like that to get them to like speak up for and donate to BLM. And I just said to her, do you regret this now in light of recent events because of what happened? You know, how the money's been spent by BLM, the bailing out of Quintez Brown, the anti-Semite gunman. Would you perhaps like to make a public apology to the Jewish community for what you've done here? Oh, and also so much for anti-capitalism, right? That 90 million that went to BLM and the way that it was spent. Oh, and by the way, I'll be DMing a load of the people here. I even DM'd a load of like the big instigators on her post who are like doing these massive attacks, threatening people like, you know, donate to BLM or we'll out you as a racist and a fascist, like every little vegan restaurant, cafe, sanctuary, everything like that. I was DMing those people like the same question. Guys, nothing, not a peep. All she did was just block me. She did write a little tweet afterwards just saying, I just had a so-called animal liberator comment on one of my posts saying like, am I sorry or something, blah, blah, blah. I thought I would reply sarcastically, but then I just decided to protect my peace and block him. Blocking is healthy. No call out. She didn't name me. No screenshots. I didn't get a single like tag mention in my DMs. Nothing. This is significant. Like, this is very, very significant. Guys, think how unthinkable these two things would have been, right? A few years ago, whenever it was, right? Unblocking 800 of the most toxic people. I don't have even a single intersectional on my block list now, right? And so unblocking all those people and then confronting one of the leaders. This girl had a spreadsheet, just to show you her influence in the movement. This girl had a spreadsheet of all the organizations who had not spoken up for BLM, and she was like ticking them off. Yeah, and there was like more than 1,000 comments on this post. God. We're gonna get into what is going on now today. Why have they gone so eerily quiet? Why does it feel like we can kind of just say whatever we want now without threat of cancellation? So the leading theory I want to go with, I'm going to run through about 11 theories that I've got here. We'll spend the stream's meant to last maybe about 2 hours or so. So we'll spend 5 to 10 minutes on each theory. So the first theory I wanted to put forward to you guys to discuss, this was something that I mentioned on your podcast, David, and also with you, Nick. And this is my leading theory, right? I believe that a lot of this hysteria was just peddled by the mainstream media. And these people are robots, right? They get enraged by what the media tell them to get enraged by. They can't really think for themselves. And it was in the build-up. What was significant about the years when cancel culture was at its highest in the AR movement was Donald Trump's presidency, right? 2016 to 2020. I think those were the worst years for cancel culture. Funnily enough, when the mean orange man went out of office, things were a little quiet, even though the same things are still happening under Biden, right? You know, Mexicans are still being held at the border, or a black person might die in police custody, whatever it is. But what can they say? Because the media they've now not got like a scapegoat in Trump to blame for all this. And nor have they haven't got like a scapegoat anymore. This stuff just happens, but who are they like calling out? And how can they call people out over having X opinions now that all this stuff is happening under the man, Biden? They bullied everyone into voting in. What do you guys think of that theory?
I have a good quote that sort of goes from what you just said, and it's BLM is like the Olympics. It happens every 4 years. So I think it is a theory that has the most credibility out of all the ones I've heard. I think there is a narrative pushed mainly from sort of like elitist liberals in the United States that kind of choose which topics to go with, and that kind of dictates the narrative of social justice. And I think it is very politically backed and funded. It may not be the only reason, but we've seen this before as well. Like, this isn't the only time the issue of race and gender gets skyrocketed, and then once the election is over, it's gone. And then when the next election comes up, the issue of race and police custody and black death might be brought up again.
Isn't it very, very convenient how the mass hysteria over George Floyd's death was very, very conveniently close to the US 2020 presidential election? Isn't that funny, right? And isn't it also funny that the number one reason people said they went to the ballot box that year was racial justice issues? Seems to be timed quite well, don't you think, Nick and David, with that?
Yeah, I was following along. See, I'm not the kind of person who would just sort of think that upon myself. But I follow a lot of, political commentators that I think hold very valid opinions. And it was mentioned once, and I was like, huh. And then that started the train of thought for me in that sort of sense. I'm like, fuck, no shit. Looking back, we've got George Floyd getting his shoulder blade kneeled on, didn't die of asphyxiation. And the camera angle from the bystander viewing it, the media blowing it out, and then the election around the corner. That's one big, massive thing that made me think about the same thing. It's every 4 years, it's like the Olympics.
Now, that was definitely one controversial theory that has been put out there. But let's say that isn't true, what you just said. It's still like, even if it was murder and blah, 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 it still was very conveniently timed, because a black person could have died in police custody yesterday. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But the point is, there's not the black squares aren't there. The whole, if you do this, you're being cancelled. That isn't there. So regardless of all that, it just seems like the media picked a very specific death in police custody, the one that I think was timed most closely to that election. What do you think about this theory, David?
I think this doesn't explain, in my opinion, why the animal rights cancellation mob has gone quiet, because the thing is, outside of animal rights, it's still going full strength. Like, if you look at outside of animal rights, like, there's still, on Twitter especially, there is still, like, loads of cancellation. There's still, like, people with, celebrities are still getting absolutely slammed for, like, uttering anything remotely controversial. So it's only within animal rights where it's properly calmed down. So I don't think, although I agree with you that there was Trump hysteria, and the whole thing with George Floyd definitely factored into why people were feeling more comfortable attacking vegans at that time, but it doesn't explain why this suddenly went quiet. Unless the only reason, well, no, because it was before the whole George Floyd thing, the cancellation stuff was in. So So I don't think it completely explains why they've specifically gone quiet in the vegan circles. I think it's part of it, but I don't think it's all of it. There's something else is happening. So one of your other theories, I think, when I looked at, and we know the theories, by the way, guys, I think some of these other ones have got more, explain it better than this one could factor in, but I don't think it's the number one. I don't think it's the leading theory. I don't agree with you that it's the leading theory.
Sure,
I
okay, that's
think
good.
David got a point about Twitter having the same kind of climate and other places, but places like, really mainstream outlets like the New York Times or the New Yorker and these really liberal elitist kind of magazines are definitely covering it less, I think, because when BLM was at its peak, it was just everything was white supremacy. Don't send your kids to school with white people. Can my white children be friends with black? Like, it was really, really extreme.
Racial segregation. That's exactly what we need.
Yeah, I feel like with some major platforms, it was really at its height and has calmed down a little bit. But I would tend to agree that, David made a good point about social networking sites kind of having the same climate. But Elon Musk is buying Twitter now, so hopefully that's going to change.
Interesting.
On that,
he's gonna fire like 70% of Twitter's employees, which I just think is fucking brilliant. That is so funny. Because because he knows who they are. He fucking knows who they are.
The people who did the firing are now becoming the fired. That is an interesting turnaround.
It's fantastic. I read that and I was like, oh my god, that's so good.
Hey, accountability culture, right? All right.
Just
all
on
right,
that
next
point.
Theory.
Sorry, just quickly on that point. So I've only started using Twitter in the last sort of 6 months just to watch it and see what's going on. And I'm getting lots of like sort of right wing and left wing sort of notifications pop up on my phone. And whenever I go in to look at it, there's always the right wing provocateur making the claim or whatever. But then there's always a leftist just underneath it, just saying something nonsensical, always as the first comment, always. And then there's just people just bagging them on straight away. And I find, it's not so big on Facebook. Like, but I guess we'll get to that.
And there's a
All
lot
right.
of like, before we go on to that, I just want to quickly mention something. I've seen the same thing. And a lot of the times, that, like, especially like when I've seen a right winger saying something like, oh, not even a right winger, just somebody out there who says there are, you know, this pronoun culture is crazy. Someone says something like that. Pronouns culture is mental, right? And then below it, there'll always be like a good couple of hundred people with pronouns in the bio with a fully like progressive mindset who are like, they'll say, oh, so you hate pronouns? And they'll list a load of pronouns from the English language. And it's like, do you really believe this person doesn't think pronouns should exist? Like you know what they're trying to say. You know exactly what they mean.
Yeah.
It's a contextual comment, you know what I mean? But they seem to like either purposefully miss the context or actually just not understand that there is a difference between like, you know, personal identity pronouns and pronouns in language. You know, that's what I'm noticing a lot. So yeah, there is a lot of that on Twitter. Like, yeah, a lot of nonsensical comments. Yeah, under these kind of things. I agree with you on that.
All right. The next theory I have is, this is theory number 2. And this kind of plays into a little bit about what someone said a moment ago. I can't remember who said it, but what if the reason they're so quiet now is just because they've won the culture war? And we could just talk about specifically within AR, because David, you mentioned, well, it's still raging on outside of AR. What if within the animal rights movement, they feel like they've won the culture war? The left, you know, the left side of things, the far left, let's be specific, has kind of won, and they feel like they're now controlling what people can and can't say. And now they're kind of just like folding their arms and saying, well, my job is done here. Like, I've made like a lot of people fear, you know, to say the certain things that I don't want them to say, and blah, blah, blah. What if that is the reason that they're now so quiet?
No.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's the reason.
I don't think that's it. Because there's the George and the Dragon syndrome, you know. These are the type of people that no matter how many dragons they slay, there'll always be another one that they're looking for. And if there isn't one, they'll create one. These are the kind of people that will never stop. Even if they get everything they want, they will find problems. So
Yes.
I don't think it's necessarily that they think they won. They never think they've won. This has been the problem with this type of person in all aspects of like cancel culture. It's never enough. Oh, they apologized. Not enough. Apologized 2 times. Okay, I did it twice. Give us money. Okay, there's some money. Close down your business. You know, there's never enough. So I don't even if they won and got us to do what they wanted, they would never stop making more demands. So I don't think that's it either.
Because it's like you give them an inch and they take a mile kind of thing.
Or if you
Absolutely.
read any of like the actual literature, in my opinion, all this stuff started off in universities. But if you read like Ibram X. Kendi or whoever it is that came up with this whole idea that the West is bad and, you know, white males are bad and everything's colonial. The end goal is kind of like a weird revolution, like to upset the order. So it kind of seems like white people don't have any power or say in society. So until that happens, not just white people, but a specific type of person in society, the status quo, whatever, I don't think what they have achieved now, if anything, is something to be celebrated that like from a woke person's perspective.
So you don't think they've won any kind of battle at all? You think that the fight that they could have is still ongoing, so it'd be mysterious if they were quiet if it was to do with that reason, right?
Well, like they've won more than I would have liked. You know, people's free speech is compromised. People feel uncomfortable saying things, but the average person, we have more in common with the average person than a woke person does. It's just a few loud voices that kind of dominate the narrative. Yeah, I don't think many people outside their woke echo chamber takes them seriously. It just so happens they've come about in powerful positions. Like the person that wrote White Fragility, she's quite an influential scholar, for example.
Robin DiAngelo, right?
Yeah, and people like that. But I think the average person living in a modern democratic society don't actually fully believe these ideas.
They have this little reading list, don't they? Every time they like out someone, they then give you like a little list. They're like, I would like you to read the following text to educate yourself.
Yes.
It's like,
Do you know, I read one. I read one of them, and someone told me you need to read this book. It's called. Well, I read most of it. Called "Why I Stopped Talking to White People About Race." Right?
I read that one. by
Right, I
Rennie
started
Edo
reading
Lodge.
it, and I was
Yeah.
like, in the beginning, it's historical. It's like teaching you about something. And I was like, wow, I didn't know any of this.
Yes.
This is really interesting. And then
Yes.
all of a sudden, it just changes lanes and just starts getting proper racist. And then it's like, is this legit? What the fuck? Like, I can't believe. No wonder people
Oh
hate
my
themselves.
God.
White people hate themselves if they're reading this shit. But I could see straight through it. I was like, you can get fucked. You just went from teaching me like facts and history, and I was
Yeah, got off to a
appreciative
great
of this.
start. Yes.
And then it was just like, yeah, it just completely switched lanes. Like
It was
about 3/4 of the way through, halfway through, something like that. Couldn't
It was
believe
so
it.
interesting at the start, wasn't it? It was talking about like the
Yeah.
slave ports in Bristol and like the history of racism in the country. I was like, damn, like it's fucked up. Like what a racist history this country has, and this is terrible. And
Definitely.
this is very informative. And then it just suddenly sort of turned, didn't it? And it's like,
Yeah, yeah.
this is why I'm no longer talking to you as a white person.
There was
It's
one
like that
part of
meme,
it.
you know, like you had me in the first half.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was. There was one part of it I couldn't believe. Like she explained how some group of gang of white people had been like threatening a black community in England and like making threats. So we're gonna kick your asses or something. I can't remember what it was. Like, we're gonna come get you or whatever. So a group of black men, a gang of black men, found out where these people were and went and kicked the shit out of them. This gang of black men, and she was writing this as like, look at this as a success, and it's like, wait a minute, like they heard that there was some people going to be violent, so they chose to be violent first, and she was like, yeah, they were defending themselves, and I was like, this doesn't sound like defending themselves. It sounds like they had weapons and shit, and they went out and just like fucking kicked the shit out of some people. And I was like, if she thinks this is positive, I'm like, what is going on in this book? It went such a weird way after like.
I don't even remember that bit, but it sounds to me like she's like a pro-vigilante almost, like it turned into like a vigilante mob kind of book, and maybe that's kind of one of the inspirations that people have, because when they do these mob attacks, they kind of feel that like it's like a power trip, right? It's like now the power is in my hand, and we're gonna rally up and we're gonna do this kind of thing to you.
Yeah, it was she was like advocating for gang war basically, as long as the black people won. Which I was like, right, okay, this book is weird. I'm not vibing it. So I don't know how we even got onto that in the end. Oh yeah, you were talking about the reading list. Yeah, that's a good one to read if you want to understand why white people hate themselves after doing what these people say. Because if you read that mindlessly, you will hate yourself. You need to read it very consciously and be aware of what the author's trying to do.
Yeah, and then the other two on the reading list, I always remember, it's Me and White Supremacy by Layla Saad and White Fragility by Robin DiAngelo, which is the one we might go. Yeah, those are like, it's like the holy trinity almost of like the white people bad books, right? That they tell you to like read to submit to the mob.
Never heard of that one, the Me and White Supremacy one.
Oh, mate. Well, you haven't done.
Like a kid's book.
You haven't put in the work, David.
I saw the work it was so funny.
It's just how I imagine them to talk. I don't know. Whenever I see something written like online, I just do it in my head in that voice. I don't know why. It just matches it, doesn't it? I don't know. It just works. I'll move on to the next theory now, guys. This is a funny one. This one makes me chuckle. So this one is burnout from bullying. Now, you know, as activists, we're all animal rights activists, right? And we all often talk about like for example, I did a post recently about why have so many people like dropped out of doing animal rights activism, and one common thing was burnout, right? It burns you out to always do this. What if they've got burnt? Their form of activism, right, is dogpiling people, is mob attacks, is cancellation campaigns, right? What if they've literally got burnout? Like maybe there's like a little group somewhere and they're sort of like putting their hand on each other's shoulders like, why aren't you doing this anymore? Oh, I'm just so burnt out. I bullied 3 people in the last 5 weeks and I just can't take it anymore. I just like, what if they've just got burnt out, just like exhausted from these attacks over the years? Yeah.
I've actually got a this is point 3. I've got like a 3B. Let's call this 3A if you'd like me to add a little bit to this.
Please do.
So I had a theory that links in with it that I think as I believe this whole kind of thing with them started because they were upset that they weren't getting acknowledgement the same way that Joey Carbstrong was, or that James Aspie was, or that Earthling Ed was, or that I was, or that you were, or that any of you guys were. Like, they were noting that they, for whatever reason, maybe because they weren't direct enough, they weren't bold enough, they weren't, I don't know, fucking know. Just they weren't good enough at putting out consistent content. They weren't good enough for getting their faces seen and heard. And they wanted to be seen and heard the same way as other people they saw. They didn't feel like their veganism, their activism was getting the, getting the accolades it deserved. Narcissism, basically. They're narcissists. I think we all know that these kind of people are narcissists, right? So that's not.
Yes.
So I think that's where it all began. And then they realized that people love drama and people love to find dirt on people that you seem to be good, like, I don't know, James Aspie or whatever, like, oh, he's so famous, there must be some dirt on him. People like that shit. Even people that love him love to hear about the dirt. That's why they read gossip magazines about celebrities and shit. So they realized they could get a lot of clout. They went doing it. But the thing is, there's only so many times and there's only so much dirt you can find, and there's only so many celebrities within the animal rights world. So eventually they ran out of people to shit on.
They ran out loads of content, David.
Right, but the thing is, mate, all they can do is repeat themselves about you over and over again.
That's
George
right.
is a bigot. George is a bigot. George is a bigot. Before eventually, it's like we know he's a fucking bigot. Have you not got anything new on him? Has he not done something else? Is some financial stuff we can rip into him for? Is there is there something? No, there's nothing. So people got sick of it, got bored. They stopped getting the likes. They stopped getting the shares, and then that's when the burnout kicks in, because now they're just. Speciesist term, flogging a dead horse, right? Now they've reached a point where no one gives a shit about them anymore. They're back to square one again. So now they need to find their other thing. So I think it fits in with what you said about them. They burn out because they stopped getting the support.
So now if you do a status saying George Martin is a racist, it only gets 1 share as opposed to the 300 shares it got back in the day.
Oh my god!
Right, because it's not a bloody, what do you call it when they do a news article, a slam news article where it's like, oh my god, this is a thing, it's like a breaking revelation about someone. What do they call it? Do you know what I mean?
No, I know. We know exactly what you mean. Yeah.
What is it called? It's like an American
scandal
term.
kind of thing, like a scandal.
Yeah, but there's a specific word for it when it's it's very huge. It's like, oh my god.
Off the press, and it's like a hysteria kind of thing. And
right, yeah. So that they can't do that about you anymore. Sorry?
Media circus? That's the word they use once.
Yeah, all this is correct. It's just there's one that's they use, and it's like I don't know. But the point is, that I think this is what's happened. And the same with me, I've been called all the isms, and most recently the transphobe has been the newest one for me. But even that didn't get much traction. I guess because people are just the ones who give a shit would look at it and go, yeah, of course he's a transphobe because he's also a racist and a sexist and a colonizer. So that they don't see it. They're like, whatever, we knew that about him. So and everyone else is I don't believe that because they're not idiots. So there's only so many times you can do this, right?
So
I'm not sure burnout should be the word used, because I sort of reserve the word burnout for actual work that people do, and then they've overworked themselves, and then so this is more like they're not getting the support for smearing others or name calling and whatnot. And I think we saw this especially in claims of sex allegations within the animal rights movement, because when all this political stuff was at its height, when someone made an allegation like that within the movement, they got a lot of support for it and a lot of attention. As we flag, this is very attention-seeking behavior. So when that's no longer reciprocated, they're not going to keep doing it. And your example at the start of the stream, saying that you did those little experiments with people who were hugely outspoken about this, and then now they're not. I can't think of any other reason apart from I did this for attention and whatever else, and now I'm not going to do it anymore. It's like Occam's razor. The simplest answer is usually the correct one.
Is it the simplest answer, though? I guess that's what we're here to discuss, because I'm not fully convinced yet on what it is. I guess I'll have only made my mind up after this discussion has taken place.
I'm not saying it's the whole explanation, but I think this is a good reason why the noise has died down, particularly around something like sex allegations. Because I know at least 5 people that were accused of something like that, and I know for a fact that it didn't happen. That's a lot of people to know within the scope of 2 years.
Yes.
So I now know more people who have made false allegations than real victims of sexual assault, which I also know.
Fucking hell. Yeah, it's crazy. And I guess one theory is that like maybe the Me Too movement could have kind of like inspired some of the like call out culture. I don't know what your theory is on that, but
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot. It was. This is another kind of maybe potentially George and the Dragon syndrome thing, where it's like it was. There was a lot of valid call outs, a lot of valid, well, not call outs, a lot of valid information going around about certain people and the horrible shit they'd done. And maybe some people either were convinced they were part of that or wanted to be part of that, which is a weird thing. But you know, you see the amount of like attention you could get from being a part of that movement. I mean, it's not it's not unthinkable that some people would have looked at that and gone, "That's a way for me to put myself on the map for 5 minutes of fame." But and that was the whole problem with it, wasn't it? There was a lot of the stuff going around was unprovable at that time, which, you know, and then there was the mantra believe regardless, which was going around too. That was some bad times.
Which conveniently
was pretty
only
crazy.
works when it's other people, but when one of the call-outers then receives an allegation themselves, suddenly it's not hashtag believe women. Suddenly it's
Right.
wait till the evidence. It's very convenient, isn't it? But
I think some of these ideas are just so disgustingly undemocratic. It violates the core principles of like presumption of innocence, guilty before proven innocent, that underlie the criminal justice system.
Yeah.
Like it basically makes Western society function. You know.
Yeah, I think
Before-
I think I was going to say I think the Me Too movement influenced cancellation and animal rights in the sense of like all the allegations aside, but just focusing on what it created in like a hypersensitivity to like not sexism, but like what people thought was sexism and misogyny. Like there was like a hypersensitivity, like they were seeing it where it wasn't for a long time. Like, you know, for example, there are like stories of like, I don't know, a guy being rude to a girl was all of a sudden not just a guy being rude. Now he was a misogynist pig and needed to be cancelled. Versus before Me Too, it was just like, oh, he's a bit of a dick. You know what I mean? So that's how I think it changed for like the cancel culture in AR. I think people took that as like okay, this is going on, so now we will go harder on guys who are being assholes. Basically, yeah, and that was something for sure.
Just building from that, like it's got to the point where we can't have an honest discussion about the hierarchy of how bad things are when something like this happens. Like there's a difference between putting an unwanted hand, you know, somewhere and then, oh no, that person's not interested, and backing off, than full on assaulting and raping someone. But these accusations are treated nearly the same. Like if you grab someone's ass, you're just as bad as a rapist. You know what I mean? Like there's no honest discussion happening about, oh, some things are forgivable and, you know, this person can grow and move past that. Like,
right.
You're not meant to eat and live for the rest of his life. You know, should he be fired and never work again? It's just there needs to be like an honest discussion about, you know, these type of behaviors.
I'll move on to the next theory now, which is that it could be the case that we've kind of got them in a corner. We've got them by the balls, so to speak, in that they're now kind of embarrassed because...
Sorry, George, I need to pause you for a
David.
second there. I just want to make sure that we're talking about gender neutral balls here, right? Because it could be like either
any kind
male
of
or
balls
female
you want,
balls.
David. Any kind of
just wanna
balls
make
that you want.
Just want to make sure we're being inclusive, that's all.
So, and it's that basically they realize maybe that there's a lot of hypocrisy in what they've said because we can just sort of very easily call them out on like an inconsistency. For example, they spent the last 4 years, you know, between like 2016, 2020, they spent those 4 years calling out anyone who voted Trump as like a racist. Now that Joe Biden, who is, I believe, probably the most racist president in our lifetimes, has come into the White House and he's the man they bullied everyone into voting in, anytime they call like someone who voted like Trump a racist or something like that, we can now just say, did you want me to reel off this list of like anti-black quotes that Joe Biden made? Or like with like, let's say they accuse someone of like anti-Semitism or something for saying like animal holocaust or something like that, we can just be like, yeah, how about that time that BLM bailed out Quintez Brown, the anti-Semite attempted murderer? Is it just the case that maybe it's like, they're like, fuck, what can I say? Because they can just go boom and catch me out with something.
This one here.
I think.
Sorry, you go, Pat. You go,
No,
Pat.
no, you go. You haven't spoken.
Go on, Nick.
Alright,
You haven't
cool.
spoken in
Okay.
a while.
So this one here I wrote down as, when you list them off at the start, as just asking why, because all you need to do is say, "Oh, why," and they just can't even respond to, the reasons that you're asking them. So, say they make an accusation to you, George, based on something that you said on the internet, and you said something, and they call you a racist for it. You respond by saying, "Oh, why?" And, "Oh, you're just a racist." It's like, well, this is the one that I think is one of the, if not the driving force or factor as to why it's all died off. It's because, like you said, we've got them by the balls. Like, they can just say things to us, and we can just question them on it now. And we're just not going to back down because we've dealt with it before. We've suffered the waves, and now that we've got, logic, reasoning, facts all on our side.
But they don't care about logic, reasoning, and
Exactly.
facts, though. So why?
Yeah, no, they don't.
But that's
But
so
everyone
that's my
else
point.
does now. But yeah,
I've got two words about this, like, the idea that they're embarrassed about someone like Biden. I got two words. I'm not too sure I agree. That's my two. Yeah, that was a Biden joke. Everyone
That's
missed
not
that.
true.
Okay. All right. No, I'm not too sure I agree with it because, like George, I agree with what you just said, that they never cared about facts or logic. They never cared about reality, and they still don't. So even if they do you can't embarrass these people. It's not possible. They've got no shame. They're narcissists. They're narcissists. They have no shame at all. They believe everything they say is true, and they were never open to new information. I mean, I just watched a video earlier where some students in some university, the woman sat up on the stage, was like some professor, biologist of some sort, and she said there are differences between men and women. Men tend to be taller on average. Men tend to have more muscle mass on average. And the students walked out in protest.
I've seen
As they
this.
should, David.
Yeah.
Right? So they're not interested. I mean, they're not open to new information, and they're not open to any information, because she said nothing controversial. All they were thinking was, this person's evil, and she said other things I disagree with. So even though now she's not saying anything controversial, we're still going to stage a walkout and scream at her and call her a Nazi. And they called her a Nazi, like, as well, that they were screaming stuff at her. So it's like, these people have never, ever been the type of people to be embarrassed about, getting slammed with reality. They're shameless.
Here's the thing, like, I've done.
I can't.
these, like,
Sorry, Nick. That's too much for me, mate.
Hey.
I've done these, like, these kind of gotcha vids almost, like my one on the BLM vid with the, like, bailing out of the anti-Semite gunman, for example, right? Now that's a very significant thing, right? That's a clear act of anti-Semitism that happened. But why did they not respond? I mean, I'm calling out BLM, the organization that has blasphemy laws seemingly enacted about it. Where was their response to this video? Why have there's just a completely eerie silence to this? So could it be, David, that it's just that any kind of response they would give to that video where I pointed out that, and the podcast we did about it, any response they give, we could just go, haha? Or do you still think that, no, that can't be it?
I don't think that ever stopped them before. They just call you a bigot. Oh yeah, of course you would say fact. You would use facts and logic. That's white supremacy. They think, no, seriously, people think facts and logic is white supremacy. They think maths is racist. Remember that stuff. Remember all that stuff, right? You know what I mean? That was not that long ago. It seems like it was ancient history when the math is racist shit was going around. But that was like only like 2 years ago, where they were there was papers and stuff trying to make out that, like, oh man, like math is racist for whatever reason.
I agree that they don't care about facts and logic, but I think they do care deeply about being publicly wrong. So I can't think of any specific examples with respect to animal rights, but I know this whole thing around Islamophobia and the claim of that has died down since Kabul and since Iran, where Muslims in those countries are actively saying, this is a fucking shit regime. Like, we don't want to live here. We don't want to live like this. And also mainstream things like the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard trial, where that's obviously she's obviously a liar and an idiot. It makes them look stupid when they start defending every single thing that, you know what I mean? Like they start defending something like Islamophobia or like the
Okay.
trial. It does make them look stupid. So they tend to go quieter when they've publicly been proved wrong on some element of the narrative. So I think there's something to that. And even when things, do you remember a while ago, someone said, I can't remember if it was Chris Delphos or someone else said, don't use the word Holocaust or discourage people to. And then all these animal rights activists from every ethnicity and background and race held photos in black and white saying end the animal Holocaust.
Including Jewish animal rights activists. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not really facts and logic, but no one likes to be publicly embarrassed and proved wrong in that way. So credit where it's due. I think people like us help as well. Like not many people want to argue with me anymore about a lot of these issues. I think it's because
that could be another theory.
Well, that is one that I'm kind of gonna come on to a bit later, but I'll move on to the next theory now, right? If you guys are happy for me to move on to the next one. This was quite a popular one when I was asking around for reasons. I had a few people message me saying the reason that they're so quiet is because they're either no longer vegan anymore, right? So that a lot of them were just like ex-vegans and they just hopped onto veganism as like a trend because it's part of the intersectionality thing. Their heart was never in it anyway. It was just kind of like, oh, I agree with this intersectionality framework. Oh, what's this? Animals are oppressed. Oh, I guess I'll do this vegan thing then kind of thing. So their heart was never really in it. And a lot of those people are just not vegan. Or the ones that still are vegan, they've just dropped out of the animal rights movement. What do you all think about that theory?
I think it's a theory.
It's definitely a theory. It's definitely a theory. I agree with it. I think it links into point 3 with the point 3 and 3A and 3B. Like if they don't get the accolades that they were getting before, they get sick of it, and then their ethics, their morals were never strong, so they fuck off onto the next thing, and then we don't see them again.
A lot of them are only vegan theory. For not for the animals, like you said. It's
as a bandwagon.
Yeah, bandwagon. And you know, when we were like, say, if we go into the local, like say in Adelaide, we've got this Facebook group called Adelaide Vegans. I'm sure there's, you know, Sydney Vegans or this or that vegans group or wherever you're from. And you go in there and you usually drop, like in there, those are the groups that you tend to get the most sort of people, you know, jumping and piling on. Like it's vegans on vegans. And well, yeah, but like I'll get to it. So that no longer vegan, it's because they, I don't know, maybe that they, I'm trying to get the words out. I've just lost it. It's because, fuck. Sorry, my bad. I lost it.
Is it something to do with infighting in those specific groups?
Let's all sit here quietly and just like awkward silence him and just see if you can get it. Yeah.
I think I've got the option to like blow up Nick's screen a bit. So
no, it's because they weren't vegan for the right reasons, and they tend to put They tend to put human feelings in front of, like say, if we were to speak like directly up for animals, saying things like Holocaust and this and things like that. So it's, you know, we can't say those things because you're affecting humans and their emotions. That's definitely the point.
Does anyone else have anything more to say on that fairly simple theory before we move on to the next one? And can I just ask, what is the credibility? Like, I want a clear answer on the credibility of this theory, by the way, like from each of you, as in how valid is it that a lot of the reason that this cancel culture has died down is just because these people have just dropped out of the movement?
I don't know if they're the sort of people that drop out en masse. Like the people that seem to drop out are more like health than forest instructions seem very committed to being just annoying vegans. So I don't. I'd have to see evidence that they are doing that.
Yeah, because they're still about. You know, those toxic pages still exist. They just don't really do the call outs anymore. It's weird. Like I still see their like animal rights, animal liberation content from time to time. They mostly obviously post about human issues, but when they do their one post out of 900 about animal rights, you know, it's like, okay, they're still part of the movement. They're still here. But then the odd person, like the girl I said I confronted earlier, who was one of the ringleaders, she doesn't have a fucking single post about animal rights on her Instagram, which says it all, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I think they a lot of them they care more about human rights, and they saw the animal rights world as like an opportunity to promote human rights, like to call out. So you notice how it happened. I think about this, right? They very rarely cancelled somebody for their views on animals, if ever. It was always the how they dealt with people that they were upset about. So that tells you everything, doesn't it? And
yeah.
then so they probably just went back to their base, their defaults, which was human rights all along. And maybe they are still vegan, but they're not talking about it anymore.
And it's not even
Nick.
human rights, because if they really cared about human rights, they'd be speaking consistently about North Korea and the Taliban
Oh, yeah.
and victims
They've-
of religious oppression in non-Western countries, not about sex and gender issues here.
They're the
Like,
most Western-centric.
pseudo human rights issues, we should call it.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And on and
Nick,
on.
Definitely.
V-Spot Diner.
Before, yeah. Where?
V-Spot Diner on McGill Road.
V-Spot Diner. Go check it out. Adelaide Vegans.
Do
All
it.
right.
Did you guys hear? I just want to quickly touch on this. Like, you was just Pat made a great point there about human rights violations and how these people didn't actually speak about these things. I just read something about I think it was Libya. I was reading about. Did you guys know what like the US did in Libya and how they just like
Oh yeah,
went
Obama
in?
just went there without the green light from Congress. I know that much.
I had no idea. They went in. They took out this leader who was doing some bad shit. What is Gaddafi? It was Colonel Gaddafi, right? Took him out. Or they didn't take him out. They took him. The people. They gave him to the people. They fed him to the people, and they literally tortured him and killed him. And then Hillary Clinton was like, "Yep, that's great. We got him done." Like, she was proud of that. And then the country's gone into complete anarchy since then. They've got a literal slave trade. They do open air slave markets with people. Like, it's completely lawless, right? This has happened. This is all because of the US and what they did. And the people now there, they're saying, if we knew this would happen, we never would have done what we did to the Gaddafi. Like, they were like, if we could bring him back, we would. And you should see what they did to him. There's photos and videos of what they did to him. They literally like ripped him to pieces, tortured him, and let him die slowly. Like, it's insane. And now some people are like, "Oh my god, like we never should have gotten rid of him." Now it's like a million times worse. And that's all thanks to the USA. So where are they? I've never seen any intersectional activist, human, whatever you want to call them, speak about that before. And I'm wondering why. Why have I only just found out about this from some rando on Twitter? Where are all these? You know what I mean? Like,
you'd think they'd leap on that if it's a chance to blame the West for something happening in the Middle East. Like, you'd think that they would absolutely fucking leap.
But it was a black president, bro. You can't criticize him.
Democratic president.
Exactly. Mental.
All right. I'm going to move us on to the next theory now. Now, this isn't any kind of like this isn't any shade thrown at people who have mental health issues, right? Many of us here will have suffered mental health issues before. They are just generally common amongst a lot of vegans. So this isn't shade on people with mental health issues at all. But what if it is just because a lot of the woke mob do have, there is a high incidence of mental health issues like depression and stuff amongst them. What if it's just due to that a lot of them are just kind of like, they feel fatigued, they're just dealing with their own issues, and this is why we just haven't heard from them in a while, because slowly over the years, like the grip of mental health issues has just kind of overthrown them, and they're just not active anymore.
Could this tie into the that they've burned out?
Yep.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Maybe they're all self-reflecting and being like, "Oh, maybe I was wrong about all that stuff I said."
No.
Now they're no longer narcissists.
Well, you see, here's the funny thing. One, like, I'm now good friends with a girl who described herself as being in a cult when she was part of like this mob. She was part of like the mob in the AR movement, and she's like now realized the error of her ways, and she's now, like, to use a metaphor, she's like throwing rocks at the church. She's like now one of the most anti-woke people that I know, right? Because she's angry at the cult that like indoctrinated her, kind of thing. So I don't know, I'm sort of wondering if like it is a case that maybe there are a lot of them who are like that but just don't have the audacity to sort of go public with it or to admit that they fucked up. But I'm not so sure because
That's a good
these people
point.
are the most stubborn fuckers in the world, and I just
Yeah.
can't. But that could be part of it. It's like they know they were wrong, but they don't have the audacity. They don't have the conviction in them to actually say, "Do you know what? I fucked up."
Right.
It's a difficult question as well because I feel the majority of our discussion has sort of been directed towards social media,
Mhm.
kind of like we're judging it on how, much they talk on social media or how
Yeah.
outspoken they're being on social media. But for example, something like LinkedIn, I don't know if you guys have LinkedIn, but when you look at it, it's just like an SJW cringe fest. Like it's all like, I
Right.
won this award for LGBTQ. We have the best diversity programming ever. It's really, really bad. And I think that's in some ways a bigger concern than some of the things we see on social media. So I don't know, like these set of ideas has infested a whole range of sectors in society. In the corporate sphere,
Right.
I think particularly like gone downhill, and because having a lot of friends in corporate law and business, it's particularly severe.
I did see recently, because we're trying to focus this on specifically like animal rights, that world, right? But and that's so I did see something specifically in this world. I can't remember which org it was, but they were giving out grants for activists. Specifically, they were like white applicants won't be considered. Like they were very specific that they would not give a white activist any money. So I think you're right. I mean, yeah, there's the outward, just in your face cancel culture, of course. And then there is these kind of more subtle little shitty moves that I think that you're right. Like big orgs are probably still doing this shitty stuff.
It is so bad, especially in like elite academic institutions, having finished like 6 PhD applications, 3 of them at very big schools. The questions they ask you, fine, if you want to ask me about my race, they're asking me about my race in about 5 different ways. What's your nationality? What's your race? What's your cultural heritage? Just Aussie, like it's going to be the same answer. And then, what's your gender? Okay, fine, female. But then, what is your sexuality? None of your fucking
Why
business.
is that important?
It's
I
private,
have no
yeah.
idea because now people that identify certain things are categorized as a minority or something like that, so they'll consider that in your application.
Yeah.
But after all this is done, I'm actually going to write a complaint letter saying this has got nothing to do with the animal rights thesis I want to write.
Let me tell you something. I don't. Was it? I maybe it was on David or Nick's podcast that I mentioned this. I have mentioned it somewhere before. A friend of mine who I cannot name did started uni in the USA, and they took this like online kind of like pre-learning course to set them up for their course, and it asked them all these demographic questions, whatever. Anyway, after he finished it, he gets this email saying, "Hello, so and so. We noticed that you've selected that you are white and male. Please take this additional e-learning course about recognizing and being mindful of your privilege while around people from marginalized groups at the university." Now he's not at his dad saw that this shit was going on. He's like, there's no fucking way that you're doing this. Get the fuck out of here. Like this is what's happening to like US college camp. It's like I call them clown colleges, right? They're now nothing more than fucking political indoctrination camps, right? These US colleges. They're not institutions of learning anymore. But I just thought that was fucking significant to bring up in light of what you've just said, Pat. I don't know. This is just how crazy it's got.
Even my very leftist friends don't agree with a lot of this stuff, and leftist people in general, a lot of reasonable ones don't agree because it's not. I don't really consider it. Well, I don't know if anyone considers it part of the left, but this woke, like regressive leftists, it doesn't represent, I think, the entire demographic, but the entire demographic also tends to be silent, which is a problem as well.
You're right. When I do my like anti-woke statuses and stuff on Facebook, it's actually like most vegans are leftists. It's mainly leftists who like them. Maybe leftists is because leftists kind of usually that often refers to like the far left now, like kind of. But most people they're like centre left. They're like kind of more moderate left. It's mostly those people who are liking the status, thinking like we're fucking embarrassed by these people, bro.
Exactly. Like you got people. Yeah, definitely. Because you got people like, and Joe Rogan considers himself a leftist, but most leftists think he's a Nazi bigot.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? It's like, so when we say leftist, so like he counts as one. There are people, there are other personalities, and like I don't know much about this guy, but I know he's left. Like Brett Weinstein, like he gets cancelled all the time. He's a leftist. So it's like it's not a problem with leftists. It's a problem with, well, I don't know what you would call them, the ideologues. You know, progressives. I don't know. I don't know what the term is. Yeah.
All right, I'm going to move us on to the next theory now, guys. So this next theory was that they only I want to tell you first where I got this theory from. There's a book called SJWs Always Lie by a guy called Vox Day, who often people say he's a white supremacist, but he's not. He's actually indigenous American. Anyway, he said in the book SJWs Always Lie, he talks about like the tactics of these mob attacks and how they kind of operate and stuff. He said that what they do is they only prey on people who they think are like vulnerable and maybe can't stand up for themselves. They're bullies, right? They are literal bullies. Now maybe there's been some kind of fight back from certain people in the animal rights movement when they find that you're not an easy target and they can stand up for you can stand up for yourself. They kind of leave you alone. I mean, that's certainly the case with me. I will never fucking bend the knee to these people. Never. So like, is it just the case that like us here, like we're not easy targets for them and that's why we haven't heard from them in a while and so on? What do you think to that theory?
Big thoughts on this one. So recently, over the last couple of years, there's a certain one person in particular that I was friends with. We used to do activism together, AV, all this sort of stuff. And, you know, we shared, you know, we were on a very personal level. We shared a lot of intimate things about each other in order to, you know, become friends with each other and all that sort of stuff. You know, things about each other's lives and all that sort of stuff. And when it came to the pandemic, when that began, try not to use the buzzwords, when it came to that, he had a very strong position on certain things, and I questioned him on that position. And then I got ignored. I messaged him privately, got blocked, and then
you fell out over that.
Yeah, that's right. And so I messaged him and said, "Hey, look, like, you know, you're a vegan activist. You want to be known as someone who has some sort of integrity. Why are you not able to have a rational conversation with me?" And he just blocked me after that. And then probably about a month ago, like I've been sort of tracking what's been going on with sort of people and what they're saying and all this sort of stuff, just to keep an eye on it strategically, to, you know, so I don't step on any toes. It's a massive, like it's a big strategic thing, man. It's so fucking weird. And then so you might have seen this on Facebook recently. This person he blocked me, right? And isn't the reason for blocking someone so you don't see any of their shit, right? Yeah. You're like, so you don't have to worry about him anymore. But he took a screenshot, or probably had a screenshot fed to him, and then he shared it of something that I said, and I made a shit vegan show about it, called him and everyone on there out, and I messaged them all privately. They all blocked me. One person I got an apology out of, because she said like she's got mental health issues, and I said to her, like, wouldn't you hate that if that happened to you? Rah, rah, rah. And then I saw this guy out in the streets the other week, and I pulled my phone out, started talking to it. All right, I'm going to go confront him. And got in his car. "Oh, you filming me, mate? I'm not going to talk to you." I'm like, "Hey, well, you know, you don't give me the chance to defend myself on your post when you're saying things about me. So now you get a chance to." And drove off. He had a date, or what I would assume was a date. He was on a date, possibly. I don't know if this is true or not. And as he was driving away, I looked at her in the passenger seat. I said, dump him. You're not worth it."
Mr. Steele, your girl. Nick,
him. And then drove away. So that probably put that to bed. But that's only prey on the weak and the vulnerable. We ain't weak. We ain't vulnerable. We ain't the victim.
This has happened to me a few times. Like, I'll see people say George Martin is a this, George Martin is a that, and then I'll message them and I'll say, "What's your evidence that I'm a this?" And then they'll just block. It's like they're not ready. It's like, oh shit, he actually dared question what I said. Like, did you think I was a fucking easy target and I was just gonna like lay down and submit to you over that and be a good little submissive over what you've just said?
They notoriously avoid and hate debate. I think that's a truism. Like, everyone kind of knows that about intersectionals. I've never had anyone accept my challenge to debate them or anything like that. And I've seen other people offer to do the same thing. Like instead of these hateful comments back and forth, why don't we just debate each other? And they don't.
Yes.
Mhm.
I mean, it was significant because only 2 days ago, I actually had this dude, this far left dude, Ash, who said, yeah, he will take a debate with me. And he said he was happy to do it. Now, that was significant because he's like the only person that's done it. I've asked many of them to like debate over
Yeah,
the
how long
years.
have you been in activism for and had this problem for? And it's taken, what, like 10 years for someone to want to debate
Exactly.
that.
Yeah.
I didn't
Like,
like that he was
it
anonymous, though. I didn't like that. Own your words.
Oh, but it added to the mystique, though. I
Oh,
liked
yeah.
that. I don't know.
Did it?
Yeah, he had you on the back foot a couple of times, though, didn't he?
Fuck off.
He did a little bit. He did
I'm
a little
halfway
bit.
through
He
it.
wasn't. He was definitely like, you know, it was good because it was good though that happened because it was like neither of you could walk all over the other one. So it was like, okay, this is good exchange of ideas, right? I think it went really well.
Yeah, no, it was good. I think it was good for people who watched. Like, you know, I definitely thought he brought more to the table than like the average just intersectional who would like flee from a debate kind of thing. So
Totally.
yeah, it was definitely significant that debate happened for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, well done,
What
Peter.
I also think helps has the anti-woke, I don't know what we call ourselves, but has more people refute nonsense. It becomes clear that it's not just white males who don't like this stuff. And I think as it becomes more and more clear, it's everyone of all different genders and ethnicities. It's harder for them to just slander people, and they'll back down quicker from me than you, for example. You know.
But Pat, don't you realize that you have internalized racism and
I'm
misogyny?
actually hearing less of that. I'm hearing less of internalized racism crap. So that's
It's great. I always love that one because it is actually racist itself to say that to someone like, oh, your opinions are because you're just an internalized racist thing. It's almost like infantilizing you, like, oh, you're just a little baby that can't understand you have internal, which is racist in itself because then you're
It's
like,
so racist.
you know what I mean? You're specifying that, right? You get my point. That's
why I didn't realize how badly they're patronizing other people. The example I gave today just on Facebook was I was at a big sports event recently, and we all had to do this, or we had to acknowledge Indigenous land because we always have to do that. But this like traditional dance and worship of like the Aboriginal spirits, the only time we would do this is for Indigenous people because we hold ourselves to like secular standards, most people. But we're pro science and pro evidence, or unless it's Aboriginal people, then we got to pay lip service to this nonsense. And it's not clear that every Aboriginal person wants this either. So it's just our attitude in general, not our attitude, but people that follow identity politics, just end up infantilizing them.
And being from Australia too, I completely understand what you're saying. And it's I know, like, I'm going to say it. I know a lot of people. I went to school with a lot of people. I know a lot of Indigenous Australians, and who are some of my really good friends. But then if I were to say that to them, but don't you know that you can still be a racist and have Indigenous friends? It's like, fucking hell, how are you going to win?
Did you just pull out the I have Indigenous friends card in public? Like, I mean, it's just
Hashtag
such
not all
a
men.
typical.
Did you just not all men on my status?
All right. The next theory, guys, that I want to bring up. What if they're just doing the ignore tactic? It's almost like the silent treatment, but it's like maybe they've had this kind of like little meeting. I can just sort of imagine them in their little like cult meeting with their little hoods up, and they gather around with the candles, and they've said, all right, guys, our next tactic is going to be the ignore tactic, because what we found is that calling these people out just emboldens them and gives them a platform to spew their hate or whatever it is, whatever it is that apparently we do. Like, what if they are now just saying, do you know what, just ignore them, and maybe they will kind of like go away and they won't get the attention that they deserve? Is that why they're so quiet at the moment?
I think if that's their tactic, it's pretty fucking stupid, because the whole point of this is these people that were doing this, like, okay, do you know anyone that was well known or popular before they started canceling people? Because I don't know anyone. Do you know what I mean? Like, anyone who had a substantial following who was actually like, doing really like getting some, like, I don't know, fame or whatever, getting the 15 minutes of fame before cancel culture, but before they started to cancel. Because I only saw it like where their posts pre-cancel culture were getting nothing, and then since they started being shitheads, they got loads and loads and loads of like love. So my point there would be like,
well, hold on.
yeah,
but,
go ahead.
But that's validating like a theory went from earlier that might not be true. That it's about them getting like attention, whatever. I mean, let's assume that that's not true, and this theory is true.
That's what I'm trying to say. So I'm trying to say that like the ignore tactic, clearly, like our accounts, the people that were talking, the people that are problematic, were growing regardless of canceling others or being cancelled, right? That everyone continued to grow. So ignoring us makes no sense because we were already growing and we did continue growing. So like the ignore tactic wouldn't serve their purposes of trying to take us down, if that makes sense. Because we're not just going to go away because we're growing. So why would we go away? Whereas they needed this to grow. So that's what there's a difference in my eyes.
Okay. Yeah, I see what you're saying now.
That we ignore them because they will disappear. They need us to feed them, but we don't need them to feed us. You see the difference? They actually need the victims. We don't need their cancellations.
Right, they're like a parasite. They need like the host. We're like the host.
The host, absolutely. Yeah.
It's actually really difficult for the average person to continuously be an animal rights activist. So if meat eaters and industry doesn't stop us, I don't think they are even that stupid to think the silent treatment on their part would stop animal rights activists. That seems insulting intelligence. I don't consider them particularly.
Can I say I did see this? I did openly see this tactic actually said by like I guess an intersectional. It was Gary Francione, as it was. As it happens, who I would consider an intersectional. He says veganism is a left-wing movement and we don't have people who have like conservative views or they're not feminists shouldn't be allowed in animal rights spaces and that. So yeah, I would say Gary Francione is an intersectional. I saw him say publicly about me, of all people, the best thing to do with George Martin is to ignore him, he said. So this is, I've literally seen this.
That is so Francione to say that. I presented at a conference in Finland earlier this year on animal rights theory, and they made me go after Francione, which was really frightening because he's considered a superstar in academia. And this has nothing really to do with what you just said, but he was surprisingly charismatic. Like he's a really good public speaker. I'm surprised because I watched a couple of his YouTube videos, and he's kind of meek and mild, but has like a presenter. He was actually really good.
Yeah.
And he like just shat on animal welfare so badly. It was amazing to watch, but yeah, I don't agree with the political views, obviously. But
like
it's a big shame. Welfare and animal law, you're wasting your time, and everyone got really butthurt because I was like one of the few animal rights scholars that were there, and everyone else was animal welfare because it was an animal law conference, and animal law is animal welfare. But anyway, sorry, that's just my fangirling over Francione. Back to you.
All right. Shall I move on to the next theory? We've only got like 3 left or so. Shall I move on to the next one, or did anyone else have anything to say on that one?
No, I'm good.
Okay. So the next theory I have is that this one I found quite credible because this one I actually got from a girl who was she wasn't like a call out herself, but she was part of like these toxic girl groups on Facebook where these call outs and stuff, like they would organize these cancellation attacks kind of stuff. She told me that it's just kind of not trendy anymore to like one up on each other. She said that what was kind of happening in these years where cancel culture from the woke mob in AR was at its height is that it was almost like this like fashion. It was like this trend to be like, I'm going to cancel so-and-so. Oh yeah, you cancel so-and-so. Watch this, I'm going to do this. And it was like this almost fucking fashion in these like really toxic little cult groups. And maybe that fashion, that sort of trend has died down. What do you guys all make to the theory as like it was like a trend that's not trendy anymore?
It was a long-lasting
trend.
This is
like one of the earlier theories of I can't remember.
Say again, Pat.
This is kind of just like one of the earlier theories that we went through about them not getting support anymore. I think it's tied into that, and it's like a popularity contest almost on who you can bitch about the most. And
maybe, did David mention this in his point like 3A or 3B or something like that? I don't know, but if you feel we've already... And how valid did you all think that was? Let's just quickly recap, because let's just quickly discuss that point while it's here for everyone who's forgotten what we said earlier. How valid is that theory? Do you all think that it was just like a trend that's not trendy anymore?
I do think that
Yeah.
a lot of people who participated in the cancel culture, or, if that's what we're referring to it as, they did see it. I don't think they would have seen it as necessarily a trend, or that it was trendy for them to do it. But I do think that they did use it as a way to sort of bolster them up in like I guess in the social sort of status. But I wouldn't go as far as to say it would be trendy. But yeah, maybe if you want to add some more, David.
I think we've had a lot of trends in the vegan and animal rights world. There have been different trends. This is obviously one of the worst ones. Like I guess a trend is just when something is seen as, I don't know, seen as good, seen as people get FOMO if they don't do it. Like, oh, look at that person getting 10,000 likes or 10,000 views. I want that. What did they do? Then it becomes a trend, right? It's like TikTok trends, exactly the same thing. Like there was one trend at one point, I think, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, with people trying to take selfies with animals in slaughterhouses and stuff like that, or people doing rescues. See, that was an example of what I would consider to be a positive trend, because it was getting more exposure to animals, even if it meant somebody was in the shot. I think human faces in the shot actually increases the chances of that post getting further out. So I think that's an example of a good trend, for example, people doing open rescues and stuff like that. That was a trend at one point. So these do exist. And this one, it does seem like it was a trend, honestly. It feels like it was a trend for the narcissists who actually didn't want to do any real activism. For example, they didn't have the guts to go and do a rescue, didn't have the guts to go into a slaughterhouse. But how do I get my 10,000 likes? Well, okay, I saw this person called out Earthling Ed and they got super famous, so I'll call out James Aspey. And then these groups form, like George was saying. So I think this is a good theory. Yeah, I think it makes sense.
Where did James Aspey go?
All right, we'll move on to the next one.
We have a whole podcast about that.
Oh shit!
If I can answer you briefly, if you want to know, he's taking time out. He's having some back pain and stuff. He's trying to fix that right now. He's got quite serious back problem. Yeah, but that's all I know. Last time I spoke to him, he was doing some work on that. And
I don't think there's a clear-cut division between these theories. So the leading one that you said at the start about big politics and elite politics setting the narrative. I think that feeds into what is popular, and then that gets on social media, and some girls are like, oh, it's really hot right now to call out this guy, and then
a vicious circle.
Yeah.
So hot right now.
Yeah. Now, oh, it's not that trending anymore. The big not writing about it. Let's just back off now because we're going to look like idiots.
Yeah, no, I agree. Just off topic, right. Something quite funny before we go on. George, I want to say something real quick. You said so hot right now, and I don't know if you know the movie Zoolander, but there's a scene in it where what's his name? He goes oh, Hansel's so hot right now, and I've got the words right now tattooed on my foot, and my friend's got so hot on his leg. We actually got that. So when you said that just now, I was taken back to that moment.
Sorry, Pat, we man laughed over you.
All right.
What?
Zoolander's an amazing movie, by the way.
Oh, we man laughed over her. Yeah, you're right. Sorry, George, sorry. Pat was going to say something, and you're right. We did man laugh over her. Yeah.
I think I just said show me your foot, but then now the moment.
Oh, God, no, you don't want that. No. Trust me. It would haunt your dreams. Sorry, George.
Right. The second to last. Yes. The second to last
I do think that we need
to
have.
Playing on the delay.
Right, how do I do it from the stream? The second to last theory that I want to bring up is, this was from someone who mentioned this recently to me. He just said that they're now too busy fighting amongst themselves. There's a saying, right, called the left eats itself. And what that means is the longer that they have these issues that they speak about and they're often attacking others for, they ultimately end up just eating themselves over. One example we're seeing among feminists at the moment is the idea of trans women in women's spaces kind of thing. Should trans women be able to use the female changing rooms and stuff like that? And are they just too busy fighting with themselves now because infighting is an issue and can distract from anything, right? What if like they're busy infighting amongst themselves, like the intersectional woke crowd, that they are not, their focus is diverted away from us in the non kind of woke crowd for the moment.
I'd say this would be, I wouldn't say it would be one of the leading theories, but I'd say that there is a possibility that it's happening. But then again, we'd probably be seeing it as well. You know, if it's to do with veganism, we would be seeing it. There would be posts about it, whether it be comments, our algorithms would be flooded.
Yep.
You're right. This is why I don't think this is a very credible theory, because I mean, I think it could be happening with a few of them, but if it is, it's happening in very private spaces. They're not doing this publicly. Holy shit, I would love to see some of the key intersectional figures like absolutely like killing each other like on the posts in public. That would be fucking hysterical.
It's all on the dark
if
web.
you think of like the main like kings and queens of the call up, right? Yeah, it's like if they're doing this, they're keeping it like quite tucked away from us. Like maybe it's in their little groups that obviously none of us are members of, whatever. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, infighting is something you only really know about if you're in that movement. I feel like I only know about infighting and animal rights because I'm active in it. So we wouldn't really know the extent that affects their ability to comment on our issues.
Right. Because it
was like when carnists will randomly.
So yeah, there's a delay, George.
Like
go on,
carnists go to like. Oh, sorry. It's like when we do a video about animal rights or something about like infighting within the animal rights movement about that only we really understand. Random carnists will sometimes like comment on it, just some bullshit about lions eat meat or something, and you'll reply like, this literally has nothing to do with the conversation kind of thing. So it does show, that goes to prove, I guess, what you say, Pat.
Yeah. It's hard to sort of make a call on it.
Yeah, I don't know. I do think that we would be included in the infighting though, because we are all in animal rights, and this is an animal. They are upset about things that are, well, unless it's human rights stuff, and then they wouldn't be coming after us because we don't sit and talk about human rights all day. So then we wouldn't be involved in that infighting. But if it was animal rights related, then of course they would. We'd see it. So yeah, I'm not sure.
In some ways, it's kind of like taking out the trash.
Okay, I'll move us on.
Actually interested in animal rights.
George, maybe you could like exit and then come back because you're super delayed, like behind us, and every time we finish talking, there's like a huge gap that's kind of screwing you over a bit.
Yeah, I think there might be a delay on my end. I think my Wi-Fi might be fucked.
Yeah, there you go. It's like
hold the
frozen
fort,
up
mate.
now. Yeah, you could like come back, go out and come back maybe, like restart it, reset it, and then we can just sit here and chill, talk shit about you.
Hold on, let's.
Oh my god, exit and then come back.
Where can we find you right now, David?
As in, like, where am I in the world?
Yep.
Oh, I'm in Turkey.
Turkey?
Yeah,
Oh,
I live in Antalya.
Wicked.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty nice here. Yeah, it's good. Cheap, cheap and sunny. Like, what more do you need?
Yeah, awesome.
Oh, nice. Why Turkey?
That pretty much was it. Like we came to Antalya to meet up with Dave LeDuc. I don't know if you know, he's like a vegan world champion fighter, and to talk about some stuff and like hang out and just, you know, have a holiday. And the city is just, we looked at the rent, we looked at the cost of living, we looked at everything. We were like, shit, we can actually afford to live here. And it's like a proper, like it's like a major European city. It feels like a major European city. It doesn't feel like you don't really miss out on anything, and it's like half the price of every other major city in Europe.
Awesome.
So it's like, yeah, okay, this is solid. We'll
Good
come
for
here.
you.
Yeah.
Wicked.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
It always surprises me the difference in prices.
Right, how is
cities that are so close?
It's still super delayed, man.
Shit. Okay, right. I'll try and move us on to the next point now. Sorry about the connection there, guys. I apologize for that, but we're coming like towards the end anyway, so I'm sorry if my like Wi-Fi is fucking up a bit. So the very last bit that I want to, the last point I wanted to raise, this is one of the more like out there theories, and because the delay is proper bad on my end, by the way, I'll kind of leave you guys to just discuss this mainly amongst yourselves, but I'll just say what the theory is. What if it is that a lot of these people, like the main instigators, were just being paid off like by certain industries to like spread shit in the vegan movement, and maybe now they're not being paid off for whatever reason that is. Like, what do you all think of that?
I think that could possibly be happening because we all know that Antifa was being paid, but also I'd have to see some evidence. However, you know, that's just one of those things. But true, I never thought of that.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, I can't prove or disprove it. Do I think it's possible that some PR assholes from like some big ag could plant some like trolls, like kind of like there's a theory of like, you know, Russian trolls right now. Could they do that for animal ag and big ag? Yes, of course they could. And could they do it efficiently? Yes, absolutely they could. Could they have been the ones that, for example, took AV down from its like height and actually like destroyed like, I don't know how many of the groups? Could that have been like a big strategy that was like, could it? Yeah. I mean, it could have been. The thing is, we'll never know. And, you know, remember the best slander campaigns and the best cancel campaigns base themselves on partial truth. You know what I mean? So not to say AV didn't have its issues at the time, but a fantastic campaign from this kind of company would be to play on those issues to destroy it. And if that's, could that have been? Totally could have been. Yeah, absolutely. It would have been really, that would be smart as fuck. Like if I was going to do this myself for animal ag, that is what I would have done. Absolutely, I would pick on issues that exist and make them big and make sure they, you know, really go hard on them in order to take down the people I want to take down or take down the organizations I want to take down. So,
Are you diverting us away from you there, Dave?
Mate, honestly, I'd be fucking great at this. If I ever switch camps, the animal rights movement is fucked.
I don't think it's unheard of. A couple of years ago, someone told me some information, like, and I can't show any evidence for it, but this is, you just have to take my word for it, his friends, that people in high up in law enforcement were closely monitoring animal rights activists, like their views on YouTube, organizations like AV, and yeah, that was serious enough. And if that's all I know just from, you know, talking to someone who sneaked her way into a, you know,
I'm going to tell you a little bit about that as well. So I know I've heard something very similar. Obviously, I don't have evidence as well, but around the time when because if I were to say the name of the relevant documentary, it would be sort of outed. I know a story of someone who was undercover and was sleeping with someone for a vegan organization here in Adelaide, and turns out that they were a police officer and they got caught in the sting. And just to try and get information to try and shut someone down, but not necessarily to try and be a plant in the movement. But yeah, they're absolutely capable of it for sure.
George, if you want to, I've got some evidence of that happening. 1 second. Hey, let me fucking. Why can't I fucking post the? I just copied it. It won't let me paste it into the. Check this out, right?
People in the industry are losing money. Like the dairy industry is losing millions or billions of dollars because of the plant-based market and because of activists. So we're seeing the slow change, and I think the pushback, stuff like this is good. Like it shows that we're actual threat.
Page not found.
Oh, is it page not found?
Yeah.
Are you serious?
404.
Are you fucking with me?
Nah, not even.
What are you on about? That should work. That's the link I've just got open. George, could you pop that link up here, mate? Could you share the screen? Put the link up.
Let me just see.
Oh, no delay. Look at that. He's back.
Oh, it's the delay. Okay, is it?
It's gone.
There's no delay
it's gone.
now.
Yeah, no delay
Thank
now.
fuck for that. Yeah, I think it was okay. It was my Wi-Fi just fucking up.
So
damn,
this
private chat. I've got to look in the private chat.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll just explain this while you're loading it up. So basically, this is an example. There was the guy, an undercover police officer was doing like undercover work within an animal rights group or animal rights people. Ended up sleeping with one of the activists, got her pregnant, and then disappeared.
Yes.
And fucked off, like, and then because obviously his work was done, and this kid's just now got compensation from the police.
One of them was
for
called
that.
Mark Stone. Mark Stone was one of those cases. This happened a few times in the UK. He invited, like, they infiltrated, like, it was like the animal rights and like environmental groups, and they got deep into it. Yeah, there were deep infiltration there, like to the extent,
Yep.
like you said, that he fathered their
Literally.
fucking kids.
Literally deep, real fucking deep.
But yeah, people can just look that up themselves.
Yeah,
Unfortunately,
please
it's saying
do.
404 on your links there,
That's
David.
what the fuck. That's super weird.
Boom! I
How
was
can
about to
load
send
it?
you
guys-
a screenshot.
I didn't believe you because I just literally copied and pasted. Whatever. Anyway, it happened. It's on the Guardian. Just put in.
I like that. It
fucking-
happened. The Guardian said it. It happened.
Just put in animal rights activist police pregnant. That's what I searched for, and it brought it up immediately. So that's fucking mental. So if they can do that, right? If they can do that, what makes you think they couldn't just get some online trolls to go and mess with people and cancel people? I mean, of course they could do that as well.
But then why would
With
they
an NDA.
Now, I missed a lot of what you guys were saying because my connection was fucking up so bad a few minutes ago. Why would they stop? Okay, so why would they stop? Is it just because they've lost money? That was only a bit that I caught from Pat say. Do you think they've lost money and therefore they can't afford to pay these idiots anymore?
No, I just think they have campaigns, dude. Like we said, every 4 years there's like loads of racial unrest in the USA. They're probably just right now taking a break. They've been doing it 2016 to 2020. Seriously, it'll come back again, right? That could be what it
Right.
is. I'm being hypothetical. I'm theorizing here. Like they can't just maintain campaigns for like 20 fucking years. Like they have to have some like get people to feel okay again, and then slam, go again, and then it's like there's a graph for this. This is what they do. It's like oh fuck, where's this graph? It's like a political people who manage political campaigns.
Yes.
This is what they do. Like they create all the unrest and they let people calm down, live normally, and then that's when they strike again because then it's the most effective. Unrest again because everyone was calm. If we're always top high alert, then how can we ever be? We'll get used to it. You know what I mean? We'll just sail along. Okay, this is life now. They need to make us feel good and then slam, good, slam. So this is, if that's what they're doing, that's the right way of doing it.
We'll see it again in the 2024 election around the
Right.
same time as well. Like you can
Yeah.
predict nearly when it's going to happen. Another
This is weird.
police officer kills a black person, which happens every day, but we'll see it that price again.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is weird because I thought this was the more out there theory of the lot
It is.
that we've mentioned, but it's but it seems from what you guys are saying that you believe this could be actually one of the more credible ones. I don't know.
No, it's a complete conspiracy theory. There's no evidence at all to back it, but it's just to show that historically the police have been involved in animal rights. They've got an animal rights activist fucking pregnant. So it's not unthinkable to imagine that animal ag could be trying to infiltrate, and then they don't want to send people in undercover and get people pregnant like the police did. So they're like, oh, we can do an easier way. We can just infiltrate their online spaces. It's fucking easy. It's not difficult to rile up AR activists, is it? Let's be honest. Like it's very easy to get these kinds of people pissed off. And so why not do it that way, right? Get them riled up about the wrong things. Easy.
Yeah. No, that is interesting. All right, well, guys, those are all the theories that I wanted to just put past you all. We'll come now to the final part of the broadcast. Like, let's have a last 20 minutes or. Lawrence says, "I'm a copper. You're all nicked." I knew it. I fucking sussed it, Lawrence. Let's just spend the final 20 minutes or so now just summarizing and going with what we think are the most valid theories, because I want to end this with actually a fucking idea in my head as to what's going on, because I'm clueless right now. Well, I'm not clueless, like I have some ideas, but I would love to go away from this live stream actually kind of putting my finger on what the hell is going on here. So let's summarize our thoughts, and please do any of you have any alternate theories? So all that I've just listed like 11 theories there, some credible, some in you guys' eyes not so credible. Do you guys have any alternate theories that are strong? You have a strong inclination towards?
I don't have an alternate theory, but my theory is just the hybrid theory. There's a hybrid of theories that we mentioned that can nearly adequately explain why we're seeing temporary silence on the part of intersectionals and the work crowd. So I think a combination of the first one of, big politics setting the narrative, and then people treating it as a popularity contest because they can't think for themselves. and now that's died down a little bit for political reasons, and we'll see it rise again when the next state election happens.
So if Trump wins if Trump wins again, if Trump wins the 2024 election, do you think the hysteria, the call out culture will just start all over again?
I'd bet my life on it. Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. This could ride all the way, but we could see something like, obviously it's racism every 4 years. It could be something a lot bigger now, because especially with The Greatest Lie Ever Sold. Thank you for linking me to that, George. I'm about 75% through. I felt tired last night. Yeah.
Very interesting documentary.
Very interesting.
Very interesting.
Yeah. So, you know, with that in mind, there could be something bigger that's going to happen in order to throw Orange Man out even more. But then again, all the I like to think people are smart. Like, I like to reserve that, right? But I don't know. Man. I don't know. But
I think the average person is really not that smart.
Yeah.
It's not that they're not smart. It's just that they don't have any guts to speak out if they think something's stupid. So it's a mixture of like stupidity and also cowardness.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. Humans use the word sheep to describe someone who just follows the crowd. Humans are the ultimate herd animal. We are worse than any other animal on the planet in just following what the fuck others do and what
Great point.
say. Yeah. Like, the media has a huge power to influence like what people think, what people get riled up about. It's like they literally get riled up about the size of the story. If it's on the front page, that's like, this is what I need to be really angry about. If it's like a little blurb on page 17 like that, it's like, yeah, I'll just kind of ignore this. What's the difference? Neither, like, they're both the same significance. You have someone dying on page 17 in police custody, but then you have someone on page 1 who died in X way or whatever. And it's like, hold on, why aren't you blowing up the one who died on page 17? Why is it always you just go with whatever the front page is saying? That is obviously very telling of just how these people's brains fucking operate.
Yeah, definitely. I've got an alternative theory that's kind of funny, but also kind of true. I think it is kind of linked with what we've discussed. But you know, like when you're young and I don't know if you guys ever loved Pokemon, but I did.
Yeah.
I really loved Pokemon cards and Pokemon and stuff like that. And then there was Pokemon. I was into Pokemon. Then I was really, really, really into guitar. And I was like really into like playing guitar. I wanted to be in bands, and I was in bands. I was in bands all the way up until I was like 20 something. And that was pretty cool. And then I moved on to other stuff, and life changes. And so I think, but as I got older, my interests matured. Like Pokemon was still, great. Pokemon right now is still something I would play. I still geek out. I still geek out over Pokemon. I still geek out over Pokemon cards. But I'm not like really, really like fucking. I fucking love it so fucking much. You know what I mean? It calms down. And so what I'm trying to say is, today's world, like, okay, the Pokemon and stuff like that's not as interesting for people because they've got fucking the internet. We didn't have the internet growing up, so we had Game Boys instead, right? We had Pokemon cards. We had to fucking see people in person, Yeah. So nowadays, they've got unlimited things they can go and do. So these things are so what I'm trying to say is maybe this cancel culture was just one of these kind of childish, immature things that people love to do for a little bit. Maybe these people have simply fucking matured. Maybe these people have just grown up over the past couple of years, and now all that's left are these losers who refuse to grow up, but now everybody sees them as losers, so nobody listens anymore. Because look, let me tell you, someone tried to cancel me recently because I had Book Angel on my podcast, and then I followed up with a debate with Catherine Klein and Book Angel, which I it was all ideas were accepted and welcome to be, Catherine had all her arguments, he had all his arguments, so it wasn't biased in any way. But someone from that has like 3 different accounts, and they've tried to cancel me as these 3 different accounts across Reddit. They've said, I'm going to make it sure that every time you post anywhere on the internet, everybody knows you're a transphobe, right? And they've tried really hard, and no one gives a shit because they see this person as like immature as fuck. Because I hosted a fucking debate between 2 people of oppositions, right? 2 opposite. So clearly, how could I be transphobic if I allowed an open debate on this topic on my channel, right? That doesn't add up. I wouldn't allow it if I was transphobic. I would want to only have my transphobic views, right? So
I don't know how sold I am by this theory though, David, because wouldn't then the young generation of wokals, wouldn't they all just be doing the Pokemon
No.
card is in this analogy? Why not?
No, because the only people left doing it are losers who haven't grown up, and nobody wants to look and act like a loser. When the cool kids were doing it, other cool kids wanted to do it, but now no cool kids are doing it. Only these losers are doing it, so no one's inspired anymore.
But are you saying these people stopped being losers? Because I find that's the hardest theory.
No. I'm saying they grew out of it. I'm saying they grew out of it. So they're probably still shitty, but they grew out of the specific call out stuff, like the stories, the silly videos, the silly posts. They grew out of that, they matured, and now they've gone on to, I don't know, studying the stuff instead, or trying to educate. They've moved on to something else. But the call out stuff, like, let's be honest, it is the most immature shit. It really is childish, isn't it? So maybe they just fucking grew up and now it's not cool anymore. It's just not cool anymore, and the cool kids aren't doing it. They're doing other stuff instead.
Yeah.
See, I don't know. I think these people are such fucking losers that they just won't grow out of it. Nick, go on.
I'm with you there, George. So with that, see, I would say I'm all for calling out, right? Like, as long as you can back it up, as long as you've got the evidence to suggest what you're saying is somewhat true. And once you throw it out there, then it's open for discussion. See, I'm not for calling out and then not allowing the other person or whatever to not be able to defend themselves.
A block and run, like what
yeah.
happens.
Oh,
Yeah.
dude, that's
The
that.
whole thing
all
of
the time.
call out is that it's not based on evidence, though. That's why it's just a call
Yeah,
out.
exactly.
It's not like
Yeah.
call out based on evidence and all this stuff that I have.
Mhm.
It's just an accusation.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's ever feasible.
I don't have an
you have,
alternative either, by the way.
Yeah. Pat, do you have an alternative theory? I'd like to hear your thoughts on this.
I don't think I do, actually. Like, I think the ones that we listed before, a hybrid of the ones that we had. I'm going with my hybrid theory. I don't have like a really original thing as to why it died down. I think it can really be explained through the political narrative and just the trendiness of it is not there anymore until it gets pushed again in the mainstream.
Right. Nick, what do you of the ones we've discussed, what would you say is the most valid theory? Because you don't have like an alternate or super lead theory that I've heard yourself just yet. So what would you say out of the loads of theories we've just brought up, including David's theory there at the end?
Yeah.
What would you say is the most valid theory for you?
So if I were to be asked this question by people who I know or whatever, the response that I would give would be that it's because they don't have a leg to stand on anymore. It's like they make these accusations.
But they never did, though, bro.
No, never did. That's right. Yes. No, exactly. My bad. Yeah. So they never had the leg to stand on.
Ableist comment, by the way, about the leg.
Pat earlier said butt hurt as well. I've heard that's a bit of a bigoted term too, and triggered. Like, what the hell, man? Like, can't say anything. Oh, sorry,
is butt hurt like an anti-gay thing? Is that homophobic to say butt hurt?
That's what I heard. Hey,
I think maybe that it's considered like a slur by them now, by the crowd. I don't know. Yeah, I've heard it being called out before, but
I mean, straight couples can also get butt hurt on both ways. If depending on what you're into. So I don't really...
So I don't see it's not it's not an anti-gay slur.
But I mean, so only preying the weak and vulnerable, I would say would be one of the leading sort of theories in my opinion, because now we're no longer, well, we probably never were, we just never sort of tapped into, we never, it's only so new to us over the last 3 or 4 years. It's so new, and it's taught us to actually gain that integrity that we've always had within ourselves, and to not actually back down anymore, and to think for ourselves, and therefore that makes us strong, makes us integral. It makes us, someone that people would look up to. See, I would consider myself as like someone who, because I get asked a lot of questions and I get sought for a lot of sort of advice in the local Adelaide vegan community. And I don't think I would have, it's not that I was looking to do this, it's just I never really wanted to, but it just sort of happened. And the reason being is because I don't back down, and if I'm wrong, I acknowledge that I'm wrong, and that's why I think the only Prey on the Weak and Vulnerable is would be the leading one in my opinion.
That's a good one. Could I make I want to make an observation, something I forgot from
Guys,
earlier.
my connection's getting fucked again,
Yeah.
so I'm going to have to end the stream, I think.
Oh.
Sorry if there's a delay in me saying this.
There's
guys,
a big delay.
yeah, stay there. Stay where you are. And yeah, I know, terrible delay. So
I'm still streaming, so
I'm about to say my
there's
Wi-Fi is
better
fucked
in that
again,
last
but we're
live
right
stream that
towards
we
the end.
did.
So thank you everyone for coming on. I'm gonna end the broadcast now. And guys, if you want to leave your discussions below as to your leading theories as well, that'd be much appreciated. But yeah, guys, just stay in the chat, and thank you everyone for joining us today. It's been a really good chat, and yeah, I hope you all enjoyed it, and we will see you next time.
Thanks everyone. Vegans.
George, you
Cool.
shitbag.
Yeah, sorry guys,
I had a great point.
to abruptly end there. My Wi-Fi is getting really bad again. Let me
really
just
bad
leave
right
the
now.
little room again and.
Oh my God. I want to give him a tip in a minute. That's gonna fix that shit for him. I've got this fucking cool system that I take when I'm traveling. George, can you? Is it going? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. Yep.
So I don't know what your situation is at home.